Let's take a moment to explore the fascinating history of vodka, one of the world's most iconic and versatile spirits. While today vodka is known for its purity and neutrality, its origins are anything but plain. The exact birthplace of vodka is a hotly debated topic, both Russia and Poland claiming to be the first to craft the clear spirit. In Poland, the earliest records of vodka, referred to as gorzalka, date back to the 8th century, where it was used primarily for medicinal purposes. Meanwhile, in Russia, vodka as we know it began to take shape around the 14th century, when monks in Moscow first distilled it using grain. The word vodka itself derives from the Slavic word voda, meaning water, a nod to its clear and simple appearance. Early vodka was far from the smooth drink we enjoy today. It was often harsh and unrefined, used more as a disinfectant or medicinal tonic than for sipping. It wasn't until the 18th century that vodka began to evolve into the sophisticated beverage, thanks in part to the technological advances in distillation and the introduction of charcoal filtration. One of vodka's most significant milestones came in the mid-1800s when Dmitry Mendeleev, yes, the chemist famous for creating the periodic table, he developed the standard for vodka's ideal alcohol content, 40% ABV, a balance of strength and smoothness that remains the global benchmark. As vodka spread across Europe and eventually the world, its versatility became one of the greatest assets. In the 20th century, vodka found its way into the hearts of Americans thanks to clever marketing campaigns and the rise of cocktails like the Moscow Mule and Bloody Mary. By the 1950s, vodka had dethroned whiskey as the United States' most popular spirit, a title it still holds to this day. Today, vodka is a global phenomenon, produced in countless styles and flavors, from traditional potato and grain vodkas to more modern craft varieties made with everything from quinoa to honey. Its neutrality makes it a perfect canvas for mixologists, while its rich heritage connects drinkers to centuries of history. So, as we get ready to dive into today's episode, let's toast the enduring legacy of vodka, a spirit that's as much about tradition as it is about innovation. Cheers! Hello, ladies and gentlemen, craft spirit enthusiasts, and those interested in the intoxicating world of craft distilleries, cideries, meaderies, wineries, and the occasional foray into breweries. It's Rich Shane, and welcome to Fermented Adventure, the podcast, where we bring you the fascinating people that are making the mash, fermenting, distilling, bottling, pouring, and delivering to you some of the finest libations in the world. Before we get started, here are a few housekeeping items. Thank you for bringing the podcast into wherever you are and whatever you're doing. We truly are grateful that you have chosen to listen and make us part of your day. It would mean the world to us if you left a 5-star review. This helps us climb in the rankings, and it makes it easier for others to find us. Don't hesitate to leave us your comments as well. If the podcast didn't meet your expectations, tell us why. We're always striving to improve. You can find us at fermentedadventure.com. We are on Instagram and Facebook as Fermented Adventure. Email us at fermentedadventure@gmail.com. All right, FA Nation, let's meet our guests. He's Mark Simmonds. I'm Rich Shane. This is Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Mark, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me here. Good to be here.
Well, I am excited to talk to my cousin down in New Zealand. We just met. I mean, look at us. We're twins or something, right?
Far lost family you never knew you had.
I'm glad I do. We're not just going to talk about family. We're going to talk about Broken Shed Vodka today. How did that all get started, Mark?
Well, right back in about 2009, it really came down to two Americans from the East Coast who came across to Wanaka on holidays, fell in love with New Zealand, fell in love with Wanaka, moved here with their families, basically had to reinvent themselves, obviously very enamored with New Zealand and the area, and thought New Zealand, what a great branding to take a product back to the US. And one thing and another, and sitting around drinking vodka martinis, it's like, why are we drinking imported vodka? Let's make vodka. So that was their idea. And myself, well, I've been doing booze down here for longer than I care to remember, but, 25 plus years or more. And basically, yeah, so they decided that'd be a great idea, tapped me on the shoulder and said, we want to do a vodka to, yeah, and I was initially like, why do vodka? It won't work. There's no market. But they, had this very clear idea that they wanted to take to the US. They explained about the US market and they thought it through. And the more that they talked to them, I thought, wow, that's a really cool concept. Not just doing it locally, but with his end game for the US market in sight. And then it was kind of like, well, would I regret this if I didn't give it a go, if I didn't join them? And the answer was yes. So I said, I'm in. So yeah, that's how we started. That's how we decided to do a vodka from New Zealand to take to the US market.
I want to go back to your experience because you said, I've been doing booze for 35 years. And how did you get started in distillation and production?
Well, look, distillation and spirits came with vodka, so it was a big learning curve for me. But yeah, look, I mean, this part of the world, I ended up down here when I was about 20, and there wasn't much going on. If you wanted to stay, I was recreating just in the hills. You basically had to create a job for yourself. So one thing and another, met a guy, decided I had this idea of making cider. And yeah, so we put a wee company together and I started making cider and that led into fruit juices and that led into mineral water and then that led into the wine industry. So I just worked my way through that and then I sort of moved into, the wine industry and then into the production side and the bottling side of the wine industry. And and that's when I met Mark and Steve, and they had the idea for vodka. So spirits, it was a learning curve into spirits, but definitely I'd had a long time doing booze, familiar with the New Zealand market, and familiar with fermentation and that side of things. So it was just another little slight string to the bow, but it was a little bit of a learning curve and development stage to enter into.
New Zealand, I'm familiar with the United States and their rules, regulations, licensing. What's that like in New Zealand?
It's a lot easier, to be honest. It's a little bit looser, right? I mean, you do have a pretty interesting. You have history and prohibition and the free tier system over there. So it's a little bit more complex, TDB and FDA and that side of it. Look, it's a little bit more straightforward in New Zealand. And certainly when we started, there wasn't so many distilleries around. And, in the last 10 years, it's been fantastic. Distillation has just taken off in New Zealand. And now, you've got a lot of products and a lot of gins and it's great. So in New Zealand, it lags the rest of the world a bit. We were late to the wine industry and then we developed some fantastic wines. Then we got into the beer industry. We had, big brand stuff and then craft breweries took off, and then the last few years it's turned into spirits, and now we've got craft spirits taking off. So it's a great environment to be in New Zealand, but US that's a lot more sort of older and slightly more the palate and for spirits in the US I do notice is a little bit higher than in New Zealand. But we're getting there. We're getting there because we do products well in New Zealand. We have to because we don't have a local market. Anything we do, if you want to be successful, you have to export.
Pardon the interruption. Thank you so much for listening to Fermented Adventure, the podcast. Could you do us a favor? Hit that follow button. It makes it easier for others to find us, and it helps us climb in the rankings. Take a screenshot of the podcast, post it, tag us, and let everyone know that you listen to the Fermented Adventure podcast. Now, back to our podcast. Why do you think that is as far as the New Zealand palate and where things are as far as what they're drinking now?
Just because it's a new industry for us. So, when a market's contained by the big guys, it tends to be just not as diverse, and the knowledge isn't there. Selling in the US, when we started selling over there, we spent 2 years thumping the footpaths over there, getting going. And I just enjoy selling in the US because you can speak to everything about vodka or spirits, and people get it, and they're very open to new things. Like in New Zealand, that was kind of like, oh, you got to make vodka from grain, don't you? Because that was the perception. You go to the States and say, what do you make it from? They know it can be from different sources. And when you say, oh, I actually make it from whey, they go, whey, wow, how cool, you know. So it was very liberating to be selling in the US market because that market just understood so much more. Whereas there were a few, it was a bit narrower in New Zealand, but that has definitely changed now that the craft market has blown up. So, it's cool. And it's cool to ride that wave of development and opening and awareness.
Talk about that development, how you decided that whey was going to be what you were going to work from. Were there other research projects? Were there other experiments with grains there? Or was whey, we're going to say, you know what? Don't see too many people doing this. Let's go this route.
No, look, definitely went into this with no predetermined ideas. And in fact, one of my, when I joined with Mark and Stephen, said, okay, develop a product, that's cool. And one of my writers was like, you're going to give me the time to develop a good product. Because I mean, I know making products in New Zealand, I know that we have to export, we've got to be, we've got to have a premium offering. There's no point doing a substandard product in New Zealand because, you've got to sell it in the export market. So I said, you've got to invest in me developing a good product. And they were all up for that, which was great. So we had this first year. It took me, I mean, vodka's a simple product. It took me a year and played around with our own stuff in the shed, but also brought in lots of different bases from other people. And I would just do this thing where I'd play around, and I quickly realized that, I had this experience of bottling water. So I know that, water's not water, that there's a lot to it. So, look, just playing around. And we would have these testing sessions. So on a Friday afternoon, we invite people around to come. And it was just a social thing in the shed, and it was all very much fun. But the first thing to do when they came in, I would have, 6 to 8 products on a desk. And the one rider is you come in, I give you a questionnaire, you go through, you taste these, you answer my questions, you give me an appraisal, and then it's a social drink. And it was fascinating, and that's what sort of pointed me in the direction of whey. And because what happened with all these different bases and all the stuff I was playing around with, and charcoal and the different distillates and the blending, every time I played around with a whey one, I would get this comment in the cards that said clean. And it just sort of stood out. And it's just like people are really, when we analysed it, we're going, people are gravitating towards this. And then we thought about it. And I can remember the day we were sitting around talking about it, going, well, you know what? Spirits, vodka is, predominantly made from the available source in the country of origin. So, if you're an Eastern Bloc country, it's potatoes. If you're France, it's grape mar. If you're America, it's grain. If you're Australia, it's sugar cane. If you're islands, it's molasses, whatever, And it's, well, what do we have? Well, we have dairy. We're a big dairy country, right? That's our big export. So it's like, that makes sense. That's our available starch source. And then top of that, thought about people not knowingly, but were attracted to it because of this sort of this cleanliness that comes through from the whey. And then also it was kind of like, hey, and it's sustainable. It's a great product to use because at the end of the day, we're not planting crops to grow a starch source that we then ferment. We've got this product that comes from another process that has to be dealt with. So it's got this really sustainable aspect to it. So we just thought, what a great fit. That's very cool. That's very New Zealand. So about 6 months into it, we were like, okay, we're going to go down the whey route. And then the rest of the time was just like, for me, how to work out to make. I remember sitting down saying to the boys, I can make you a vodka. We can go into the market tomorrow. And I can do it like probably 80% of the market does it with an additive. But I think I can do it, a really good product without an additive if you give me time to work it out. And it actually took me about another 5 months to work out how to do a shelf-stable product that tasted really good, was nice and smooth, and had no additives.
The way that you speak of, is it dried? And how do you separate? I mean, the whey's separated, and then what do you do as far as the next steps of fermentation and distillation?
So it's very similar. It's a liquid. So
Okay.
one of the processes for whey to deal to it is to dry it and turn it into dried whey. But no, it's a liquid form. So and the reason that it's clean is because it's just water and milk sugar. about 4%. So, ferment that, you get a beer about 4 to 5% alcohol. But there's very few other compounds in it. So if you get a nice, again, coming from the wine industry, a nice tightly controlled fermentation, you're not introducing any other compounds or any other or flavors or fusels. And then, 3 times, column distilled, and you've got nuances of that whey coming through in it, but you've got this very, very clean distillate and with very few other compounds. So, it's got a flavor nuance to it. It's got a cleanliness to the palate. And it actually is, chemically, if you looked at it under, a chromatogram, very few other fusels or other compounds in it. So it's very good on the head as well. So, it's a beautiful product to use.
You touched on the shelf stability, and that was important, and that took you a number of months to develop. Were there processes too that you had to work with maybe some different yeasts and figure out which was going to give you that best fermentation?
No, it's pretty specific because, it's an odd thing to ferment. So it's not like a wine where you've got a simple sugar that you're trying to ferment. It is a pretty specific yeast. The shelf stability comes to the fact that I was trying to make a good vodka without any additives. And you can see why 80% of the market just think, oh, look, I'll just add a sweetener or a glycerol or something to it just to fill in the hole to make it smooth. But, spending years bottling water and mineral waters and tabletop waters, water's not water. I knew the difference. So what's key about Broken Shed is that, I've built a base for that clean whey distillate, which is two waters. One of them a mineral water, and I leave some of those minerals in the water, and I control that very tightly. But what that does, it gives a width to it. So when people taste Broken Shed, they often go, "Oh yeah, creamy," because they think whey and they get this creaminess. But actually, that width of palate on the sides of your cheeks and that creaminess comes from the minerals in the water. But there's a reason that most people would say don't do that, because you can create instability. I mean, a vodka is going to be stable at -18 in a freezer and +30 sitting on the front dashboard of your car coming home from the bottle store. So it's a wide range. So it took me a while to work out how to do this in a safe, controlled manner. That means it was shelf stable, but I could leave these minerals in it. So yeah, that's one of the biggest keys is the whey, but also these two different waters to give this balance. They just give a great platform that the whey distillate sits on.
You did very well in science class, didn't you, Mark?
Look, it's interesting. I mean, yeah, I'm not trained in this field, but I just like putting products together. And as I say, I mean, the background for me was, going in and making fruit juices and just working. You get confidence in just working over. I think you get in a cool space by not being, trained or brought up in the field. You just ask questions and you try things, and you either come to a dead end, or you do something that works. But I put in science in behind it. I use a university if I'm struggling with something. I'll use a university to help me to break down what the problem is, what I could possibly do about it. And yeah, it just it puts you in a good space, I think, and gives you a little bit of uniqueness.
You touched upon these tastings that you did. You invited people into the shed. And I'm curious, who broke the shed? Because this is Broken Shed vodka.
It was already pretty broken, to be honest. In fact, probably over its life, we improved the shed over time we were there. Look, I mean, it's like all good things. It's like, this is a great idea. We were going to do it. Mark O'Brien, he had this nice little property right down with the lake, and he had this couple of old sheds on it. And it was like, right, we'll just deck this out. He pulled the roller doors off, put some nice wooden doors on, had a pot belly in it so we could be in there over the winter. And it was great. It was a great space. It was like an open plan office with everything that was in the shed came from, Wastebusters. It was all just $5 furniture and old oddball sofas and shit like that. But it was just a great environment. It was very conducive to getting a project off the ground.
It certainly sounds like an amazing rustic start of just developing this vodka and the brand and talking about the future together. I opened the bottle, Haven't had any since we received the bottle. So I wanted to share this with you and talk about some of the, just some of your experiences in the United States market. But what I get on the nose is I don't like, you talked about it. I don't like two words. I don't like the word clean and I don't like the word smooth because, it's non-descriptive as far as what I believe are character traits in a way. What I do get on the nose is there's a slight vanilla experience, and there's also some minerality to it and some salinity to it. And again, I don't know if that goes back to that water experience of what you have as far as bottling water that you talk about bringing this into the vodka as to what the nose is like. I don't subscribe to that idea that vodka should be odorless and tasteless. I think that if you're going to buy a vodka and you want to share it, you should have some character to that. And that's what I get. I mean, for some reason, I'm picking up this idea of being in a Russian vodka room or a caviar bar, and I want this to go along with that salty, briny caviar. That's just my experience of where you're taking me to.
Right. Cool. Yeah. No, look, it's exactly right. I mean, it's very easy to, produce a distillate that just becomes medicinal, right? You just strip everything out and you just got ethanol and it gets medicinal. So, the trick is, I think, is to have, nuances come through from what you've made it from. I mean, to be honest, one of the, I spent a long time tasting other vodkas and looking at them doing blind tastings with other vodkas. And one I always did actually kind of aspire to and looked up to was Chopin. And that sort of formed my idea from the start because I loved the fact that they said, hey, here's a rye, here's a wheat, here's a potato, and they're all differences, and you can pick your favorite. And very quickly I thought, well, that's really cool. So that's what I want from whey. I want this uniqueness that's in there, and then how do I take that uniqueness and give it a platform to make it round? To me, a taste profile very simply has to be like a bell curve, right? It has to start, has to lead to something, but then it just can't finish. And very, very often, I think higher octane spirits tend to be, and then they just drop, and then you get heat and so it was just to give you that nice taste. It just, comes up front of the tongue. It's there for a start. It coats wide. It definitely has a wide palate, which is pretty unique. And then, it's still got flavor notes on the way down, that real controlled burn and just smooth. And still to this day, and even with people who drink vodka, they're like, I don't really drink vodka straight. And you can give them broken shed, room temperature, worst case, but best place to taste a vodka. And they're like, oh, wow, I could just sip on that. And it's like, thank you. That's what it's about. That's what it should be like.
Well, as my New Zealand cousin, Mark, you and I said, we share the same character traits, and that bell curve and what you talked about was exactly spot on of the experience I just had while sipping this vodka and tasting it with you. That immediate recognition of this mouthfeel, this higher level of viscosity than I would say I've experienced with many or most vodkas, which tends to give you the ability to really enjoy the sweetness of this vodka as it presents itself. But then you start getting into, there's peppery notes to this. I get that salinity again for me, and some minerality to it, so the nose presents that I'm going to have this on the mouth. Yeah. There's still this residual. I mean, it's 40 proof. I mean, 80 proof. It's 40%. So there is a little bit there, but it doesn't overpower. And it's just, we've had this before, but not, just one-on-one alone. So my experience today is saying, all those things that people are saying about this vodka, this creaminess, this almost like nutty, creamy, nutty experience, it's just a wonderful way to drink vodka. And I think you've set that out to say, you know what? This is how it's going to be different. And this is how we're going to set ourselves apart. And it sounds like within the American market, you've broken into that with that projection of saying, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Look, I mean, getting into vodka is a crazy crazy market, I can remember the first time I went with the boys and I went into, a bottle store and I looked at the range of vodkas in the US and I was like, holy moly, there's so many. It was really, I feel like the floor was sort of, being pulled out from under. It's like, how the hell are you going to break through? I've just never seen so many vodkas on a shelf. But then we would go to a bar, and in the space of being in the bar, I'd see these large format bottles that we don't have in New Zealand, and I'd see them being poured and another one opened just sitting in a bar for an hour. And I'm like, oh my goodness, they drink a lot of white spirits here. So it was kind of like, it's exciting, but really intimidating at the same time. And, look, most vodkas were launched in the States with, probably what, a $20 million marketing budget. And we went nothing. It was just the three principles of the company out there pounding the streets ourselves. And the way that we actually managed to stay in there is basically just getting the product in people's mouths. The product sells itself. So it was just like, let's just get out and give people a taste and let them make their own call. The rest is just logistics of like what the price is, how we get it to you, and how we sell it. But let's just get people appreciate it. And that's sort of how we got established because, really we shouldn't have. 95% of most vodka startups fail. We only do one product. We don't have anything else. We just do a vodka. We put all our weight behind that. Let's try and make a vodka and make it stick. And after going to the US, I would go back 4, 5 years later and I go to some of the original bars that I sold into, and they remember me because I'm the guy that talks funny. And they'd still have it up. They'd still have it there. And I talk to, the bar manager and you go, look, we don't sell a lot. We maybe sell 5 or 6 bottles a month. But I tell you what, I've got 6 guys who ask for it and drink for it by name. So I'm going to carry it and I've kept it. And since you've been here, I've had vodkas come and I had vodkas go, but you're still here. So, I'd come home from that back here and I go, wow, we've got something. It wasn't huge, but we had this product that was getting, I wouldn't say a following, but it was resonating, right? And there was people that were latching onto it. So I thought, well, let's just keep going with that. That's awesome, considering that we've put bugger all marketing money into this, apart from just being over there. But people resonated, pretty liked the product, and we just sort of maintained that mantra. Let's just get the product in people's mouths, because that's what works. We don't have to hype it too much. Just get people tasting it. And it's kind of worked. And then we were just waiting for kind of that opportunity to get secondary investment. 5, 6 years ago, we got that, and since then, things have lit up a little bit in the US. So we're now in 34, going 36 states, and last 3 years, the fastest growing vodka in the US. So it's exciting, but it's been a long road.
Those observations you made at the bar, watching your vodka get poured consistently, what are some of the cocktails that you're seeing that people are making out of Broken Shed? I can think of some things that I'd like to do with it, but I'm curious if there are things that you were either surprised by or saying that's exactly what you should be making as a cocktail with our vodka.
Always getting surprised. That's why I love the booze industry. You never stop learning. There's always new ground so always keep your eyes open. You never learn. You're always learning. It's very, very cool. But Broken Shed, to my mind, less is more, right? Because it does have a profile. It has a smoothness and have a nuance, play on that. So, I always start with, the straight, like it is, because you can drink it straight. It's almost a sipper. I mean, sometimes it's just like, I don't need anything else. I just have a vodka straight, vodka rocks, vodka lime, so there's that. It makes a great vodka martini, and to my mind, you don't even need vermouth, just super dry, no vermouth. A vodka martini with a flamed orange twist. There's that little bit of caramelized orange oil in there. I just think this sits on it beautifully. So that's probably my favorite way to drink it in a nice bar. And the other thing that works really well because of the width and those flavor notes and that sort of that creaminess, it infuses really, really well. Because what happens with infusions is you tend to get sharpness from the flavors, like you can over infuse perhaps, but more so, you're pulling out some compounds which can be harsh. Broken Shed does a really good job of supporting that because it has that wide palate and that wide base. So it's just really, really fun to infuse with, and always getting learning on that. I mean, I can remember, walking to a bar and guy, and he was all excited, and the bartender goes, "Hey, come and try this," and was trying me to. He'd done these infusions. He's trying to for me to guess what the infusions were, and there was one of them, and I knew it, but I couldn't think of it. You're like, it reminds me of something, but I can't think what it was. And he goes, "Smoked bacon." And it was just like one of the nicest infusions I'd had. I thought, wow, yeah. So there certainly, flavor notes that do go really well with infusions of Broken Shed, coconut. But fat infusions work really well. But it also handles sort of that more astringency from things like, rosemary and thyme and things like that. So yeah, you can have a lot of fun with infusions.
Those items, those ingredients that you spoke to, my palate's gravitating more towards savory infusions, savory cocktails. Maybe melon in a way, somewhere that's gravitating into my palate. That martini, yeah, I mean, it just kind of spritz a little bit of vermouth on there. You don't need a lot. You don't want to change that.
Yeah.
That to me is so quintessential as to what Broken Shed's bringing to the vodka market. But you're right. Just let's bring this out. Let's grab some oysters. Let's grab some. I mean, what would be the food item there in New Zealand that people are sitting down and drinking vodka with right now?
Gravel X. Vodka and gravel X, I think, is just like that's just like bang on. That's a match made in heaven, I think.
All right, then that's what we're going to do to honor Broken Shed. We're gonna. You say Gravelax, we'll say Gravelox. I don't know.
Okay.
or we'll just get some locks.
You're,
Who knows?
you're probably way more worldly on me on that one, but yeah.
You said 35, 36 states, right? If people want to order this, go to their shelves. Is it direct? Do you have direct shipping? How do people find this if they want to put this on their bar and start enjoying this at home?
Well, the good thing is that over the last few months, we've actually now gone exclusively throughout the States with Southern Glacier spirits. So, our distribution in the US is in a really good space. And of course, Southern Glacier is in most states. So, yeah, you can get it. So you just need to go and talk to your distributor, Southern Glacier, and yeah, you can have it in-house.
Of the regions of the United States, where seems to be the most concentration right now? Where are you finding that consistently this is an area where people are really raving about your vodka?
So, obviously not a native of the US, there's a few states which I just find incredibly surprising, but really fun that we've got a huge following. And places like, southern states like Tennessee and North Carolina. I went to New Orleans and the Tales of the Cocktail just earlier this year. And then, drove up country and stopping in Alabama and Mississippi and going to bottle stores, which, from the outside thinking, oh no, we won't be in here. And then going in and seeing 2 and 3 bottle facings of Broken Shed. It was awesome. It was really, I was stoked, totally psyched. But yeah, some of those states like that, they just caught me and I think a lot of the team by surprise. But yeah, we, strong followings. And we do now, most states that we're into, we have our own, ambassadors working in those states because nothing's really changed. The best way that we can sell is just get that product into people's mouths because you get a great response and your job's half done, right? So, we don't need to rely on a lot of flashy advertising and branding and just like get people to taste it. And I think people love that. There's that authenticity. It's like, it is what it is. You make your own mind up about it. I mean, in the early days, when people go, oh, not another vodka, mate. I've had 4 people selling me vodka today. I don't want to. It's like, can we just do a blind tasting? Just take your 3 top selling vodkas. Let's do a blind tasting. And it was great because 96% of the time, people are like, oh, wow. Okay. All right. So, we just fall back on that. Let the product stand up for itself.
Internationally, where are you being consumed throughout the world besides the United States?
US is our major market, and have played a little bit around in Southeast Asia, a little bit in Australia, and a little bit in Pacific Islands, but and of course New Zealand. But no, haven't gone to Europe. The thing is, the US has been good to us, and it's such a big market that every time you have extra dollars and you want to do something with it, it's best just to focus in the US. We've got that base there, so just keep growing it. So we really, world domination is basically on the to-do list, but right now it's just keep that growth going in the US, and it's fun, and we're making good progress. So yeah, just keep the ride going.
You're a craft spirit. I mean, you're growing and expanding, but essentially you're still holding true to that craft spirit roots. Can people come and visit you in New Zealand? And do you have a tasting room, and can they see you operate the still? Or is it kind of like, you just don't need to see it? Go drink it at the local bar and enjoy it that way.
Yeah, look, it is a little bit like that. I mean, two other partners, they were savvy there. We set this out to be scalable. They knew how big the US market was, and it's like, they rode me a little bit. It's like, if we do anything, it's got to be scalable. And so it's kind of lucky that we didn't fall into that, I wouldn't say trap, but sometimes, you can, and I've experienced this in other businesses where you can, capitalize a lot into your own plant and development and site. We haven't done that. It's like, vodka is a crazy market to get into. We're going to make it scalable. And also, any dollars that you have available are just going to go into marketing and getting the product out there, because that's the only thing that's going to carry you forward. So, yeah, never really developed that side of the market. So we don't really have much here. I'm split over like 3 different facilities, but that's okay. We're in a lot of good bars, but yeah, it's a matter of get down to your local bar, get your bar to have it on behind the counter and enjoy it that way, and just get that taste in New Zealand.
My enjoyment now is really, it's not just a vodka. There's a story behind this. There's this connection behind this. And we talk about this, Dawn and I, a lot. When you have a connection to something, when, the enjoyable conversation, the personalities that come out of this, the attraction of wanting to be part of something and the connection to something, I think that's really a lot of what you and Broken Shed really provide. As far as, I think it sounds like over the last 30 plus years, you've made a lot of things and you've done well with a lot of things. And I think that just goes back to your roots. I think that goes back to who you are, that people really feel like, wow, what's Mark doing? And you telling the story and connecting with people and making them feel good. I think that's a lot of, and I haven't met your partners, but I think that's a lot of what rings true, not just what's in the bottle, not just what's advertised in the bottle, but what's communicated even through this conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you. And look, I think it's true. And I think, that is the craft industry, the craft spirits especially. That's why it's such a fun place to be in. But yeah, I mean, if you've got a product you can stand behind, then if you've done that, then you spent time and energy crafting it. It's all about taking the extra time and attention to make a good product, and then there's a lot of personality, behind the people involved, all of them, in that. And so, it means that it just makes the whole road so much easier, doesn't it? Because if you've spent that time and energy, people buy into it, they get it, they understand it. It's not hard to understand, and that means that everybody that becomes involved with the company going forward can take pride in what they're doing, because there's nothing to hide. It is what it is. You just can speak to it complete honestly, because you're not. It's not so much building a brand as building a product. You build a product, and that is the momentum that just carries you forward. So, and I think, there's a lot of that in New Zealand, where we don't have a big local market. We're only 5 million people, and Kiwis do tend to have to, punch above their weight a wee bit, because we need to be able to compete on a world market. That's the only way that New Zealand has any sort of GDP, is to be able to export products to the world, right? And if you export from way down here, you can't send out rubbish. It's got to be good. So, I think Kiwis from a start always understand you've got to have a good offering to justify to take it to the world market. Yeah, and so it's nice to join that circle of people that are taking New Zealand product to the world.
Mark, I love your patriotism in a way, your connection to your country, because that's something that's refreshing to me. I don't find too many people here in the United States and people I have conversations with that are saying, well, it's an American product. If we're going to put out an American product, we need to make sure it's X, Y, and Z. You have this identity to say, I'm not just making a vodka and I'm not just making a broken shed vodka. I'm making a vodka with New Zealand. And it says New Zealand right on the bottle. And I love the way you have that just understanding of who you are and how you bring your everything to the world. That's just so refreshing. It's so different.
Well, okay, right, yeah, yeah. Well, as I say, it's a little bit of the Kiwi way. I think you just, it's in the edit in your DNA a little bit to do that. You have to do it.
I know you're making vodka. I know you're making vodka very well. Are there things that you're just experimenting with, playing with, thinking about?
Always, again, you're learning from people, you're seeing what other people are doing. So yeah, there's always ideas burbling away in the back of your head, and there's always, things in tanks and stuff playing around out the back. Don't do as much on that sometimes as I would like, but yeah, no, definitely, pushing the barrow. But we have always just stayed with vodka, and it's kind of a rarity to really have just a single product company like this. But again, I think that just stands testament to the product and the fact that it's not a filler. A lot of people make spirits and we'll just make a vodka because it's not aged and it's easy to get out on the market. We just and people look, with the growth of gin and other spirits and brown spirits, it's like, are you going to do anything else? And it's like, yeah, nah. We just focus on we've got a good product. We just got to keep pushing it out. I mean, we're in a good space. Still got a long way to go. But it's a fun ride and enjoying the journey down the road for sure.
Mark, is there anything we haven't spoken about today? Anything you want the listeners to know more about you or Broken Shed Vodka?
I don't think so. I think we've eclipsed the lot there. But yeah, look, I just encourage anybody if you've got an interest, if your interest is piqued, get out there and ask for it and sample it for yourself and give us feedback.
What's going to happen is they're going to sample it for themselves. You'll get the feedback, but they're going to be going home with a bottle or a number of cocktails and saying, wow, I'm impressed and this is going to be my vodka of choice if it's available or I got to go find it. So great job on you, for all that you're doing. Thank you so much for being a friend of Fermented Adventure. And we hope to see you either at Bar Convent, Brooklyn, or maybe we'll get back down to Tails and see you in person.
Yeah, look, I enjoyed to have the catch up. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We enjoyed it.
Cheers.
All right, cheers.